Namaste, Jai Bharat. Dynamism is life. Being static implies death or dead. Dynamism means, let me look at dynamism as something which is constantly evolving and becoming, keeps changing. Without this constant becoming, when one gets static, that is stagnancy, and that is lifeless, no more movement, no more going forward, something of a full stop. Then you start experiencing decadence. I'm talking about Bharat, my nation, and of course the Hindu Dharma, which is associated with this nation by and large. This nation had ever been dynamic. It kept producing minds. It kept producing such minds from time to time, for all time, of past, of present, and I'm also sure of future too. There were turmoils and turbulences and difficulties with our nation for a long time. We have invasions, of course. Bharat was rich, very rich. On the one hand, it's rich in both the aspects. Rich intellectually, rich knowledge-wise, and also rich materially. So these are three different factors attracted different people. Many must have come for many different reasons, but the fact is that they came. And the first, see, Alexander comes. He wasn't that bad an invader. After all, he was student of Aristotle. He wasn't a so unruly or unscrupulous invader. He was not such an invader in that sense, especially in the lights of invasions that we have seen after Alexander. Then we have Muhammad bin Qasim of the Arabia, who invaded Sindh, and that was invasion. The details are there in the history for you to look at. That was real invasion. Must have been in 8th century or so, much later than Alexander, and much before the other invasions, which had its own repercussions in our society. Then, in modern times, Bharat was under a kind of outside influence, and different pockets of Bharat were ruled by the Muslims, fundamentally the Mughals, and of course there are others. But it never was the case that the entire Bharat was under their rule. People mistakenly think so, which is inappropriate. Not only incorrect, but inappropriate as well. Then, of course, the Europeans, Dutch came, the Portuguese, then finally the British. So some 800 years of the Mughals, different pockets. Another 200 years the British, larger pockets. There still were kingdoms which were not under the direct British rule. In some places they did send residents, but at least the independent kings were ruling. Baroda was independent. Baroda was never under the rule of the British. Even today, the Chancellor is Baroda King of Baroda University, his university. Whosoever is a Baroda King or Queen is the Chancellor by default. But these times, They were, the people used all kinds of techniques and gimmicks to get this nation under their control. All kinds of techniques one can imagine. There are so many theories, they created so many stories, misrepresentation and creation of wrong history, creation of wrong stories. All these things were done. They would have been very, very successful had it been the case that this nation has got such dynamism built in, which keeps producing great minds from time to time, whenever needed, from any point of this any part of this nation. It is not the case that great minds are coming from only one area in Bharat. You are amazed, you will be amazed to see that from every nook and corner of this land, Bharat, the land, you see great minds coming from time to time. From time to time. No single area can claim any kind of superiority to say that we created. Now, many people came from our side, many people came from particular places, but others also came from all other places. There may be the case that only one person comes from one corner, but that person is such a person who swallows every other people. Such minds keep coming. During the British regime, they tried all out to subjugate the minds of the people of Bharat. The pride of an average Bharatiya is not spurious. It is simply not saying that. They never say we are great. They never feel that we are perfect. Well, that is the dynamism. We were never instructed that the books available to us are final books. We were never told that, we were never taught that, we were never told that the Vedas are final authorities, end authorities. No, nothing like that. Everything is, or everything can be, subject to change. Change. Evolution. We have a theory of evolution in the Upanishads. The evolution says from Annamaya Kosha to Anandamaya Kosha. 5 stages of evolution were prescribed in the Upanishads. The basic Annamaya, that is inanimate bodies. Then Pranamaya, the second stage, living beings, plants. Then Manomaya, that is where the mind is there. Animals, they have mind. Then Vijnanamaya, knowledge is there, mostly suitable for humans. And then Anandamaya, that is the transcendental existence. So from one has to evolve. This is a theory of evolution. That speaks for dynamism. Vedas are never the final word in knowledge. There cannot be a final word in knowledge, because if the time has to go forward and progress, the knowledge also will have to go forward and progress. It is simple logic. So there cannot be an end. There cannot be an end. There cannot be a final word. This is the truth. Nobody tells you in this nation. We will only say this is one of the truths. The Rigveda itself says Vipra Bahudha Vadanti. Scholars will speak about the same thing in different manner, different language, and also with different meanings. That is the case. It's an open-ended thing. All discussions are mostly open-ended if they are really knowledge that is going forward in time. You cannot stop the movement of time, the forward movement of time. And if this is the case, that time moves forward, the knowledge also has to move forward. Then where can you put a stop to it? As the end in knowledge, final knowledge, there's nothing after it. Such things never takes place in this nation. It had never taken place in this nation. Mostly such things comes in religion. But we have no religion of that nature. We have dharma. That's what I said the Rig Veda or the Upanishads. Nobody tells that this is the end truth, final truth. I was talking about personalities, the great personalities which kept coming from we don't know which corner, but they come. The time when Macaulay was the viceroy, I suppose, of Bharat, he thought more than his requirement, I suppose. He thought more. He wanted to subjugate the Indians mentally, people of Bharat mentally, because he had experienced that they never accepted they never accepted that somebody else is superior to them in that sense. It's not as spurious pride. It is from their own scientific terms, observation and experiment. How do I say that you are better until you are able to demonstrate that to me? I remain open minded, I suppose. An archetype observer must be open minded. There must be no prejudice. I am not going to presuppose I am greater than you. That's why the Hindus touch the feet of somebody whom they consider as better than them in some way, at least in terms of age. At least in terms of age. Somebody whom I used to respect much was Professor S.R. Bhatt. Last week, unfortunately, passed away. Siddheshwar Rameshwar Bhatt, one of the great minds of this nation, great philosopher. He was chairman of Indian Council of Philosophical Research. Maybe last year or year before, I don't remember. He was sitting with his wife. This was in the Lucknow office of Indian Council of Philosophical Research. I just walked, I saw him sitting. Then I just was doing namaste and then going forward. There was a small table in between, small, side table. I tripped and I almost fell. But I fell on his feet. Then I said, "Sir, no problem, pranam ho gaya." Now he was almost getting up holding me to catch me. But then there are people coming up in your life like that. Now I was telling you during the British time, about Macaulay, he wanted to mentally subjugate the people. And because his experiences are that they, out of their the British people's might, and might means weapons and their army, and the situation was so. If you unpack logically, there's no reason they cannot hold on to us anymore. They can't. But it used to happen. It was just flowing. But then this flow is not a permanent flow. They also knew. We also expected that someday they will have to go. They also knew sometime they have to go. But he wanted to prolong it. His difficulty was that mentally the people of Bharat never accepted British as anything better than them. Now this is necessary. Anything better than them. If I feel that you are better than me, yes, I hear you. And I listen to you. We already have the habit of touching the feet of others. That's why his Patsap's name came to me. I have no problem falling at his feet. He is definitely much bigger than me. So when I fell, I tripped and fell. Otherwise also I used to touch his feet sometime when I meet. That's by way of shaking hands. Then I said, "No harm, sir. Pranam ho gaya." Otherwise also we are respecting people by doing that. We have no problem. But I should genuinely feel within me that you are somewhere something better than me. Otherwise I wouldn't. But Macaulay wanted that kind of subjugation, but the people of Bharat will not do that to British because they don't find them some sense, at least in some sense, better than them. Somebody, maybe an archaeologist, for example, may find a British archaeologist better than him. That's a different relation. But as a community, as a whole group, no way. But this is not spurious pride. And Macaulay rightly identified this as not spurious pride. He knew that the pride of the people of Bharat comes from their knowledge tradition. At least he sensed that, he understood that they have a knowledge tradition. The pride comes from their knowledge tradition, which is the Veda Upanishadic knowledge tradition. He simply wanted to hijack that knowledge tradition. Look at the cunning and shrewd. He wanted to somehow establish that the Bharatiya pride of their knowledge tradition, that is a Veda Upanishadic knowledge tradition, is not created by people of Bharat, but created by another people. And he named them as Aryans. He wanted to create the Aryan theory. He did that through Max Muller, unfortunate person, all that thing. But it absolutely backfired. And why is it backfired? The details are details. It's lengthy. Let me not go into the details in a lengthy term. It's backfired because of the great minds of this nation who come in between and intervene. They bring the theories out, but it did not have any impact on the society of Bharat. It did not have any impact. It had impact on Europe instead. There were two personalities in Bharat. There are many, but I will just tell two. One was Swami Vivekananda. He is popular because he spoke in a reasonably less intricate manner. Whatever he said was clear and plain because he was addressing the young minds of Bharat. He wanted the youth of Bharat to be conscious about what he is, his identity, his original self, which should provide him a self-esteem. Of course, he quoted from Upanishads, a portion of the talk between Nachiketa and Yamaraj. He said, Uttishtata, Jagrata, Prapyavara Nibodhita. That's in a different context in Upanishads. But Swami Vivekananda used it correctly at the right time and only the right sentence, not more. He said only Uttishtata Jagrata Prapyavara Nibodhita. He did not go into the other part of the continuation of it. Chirasya dhara nishida duratya durgam patasta kavya vadandi. That was not necessary. He used it. So Swami Vivekananda's intervention in Bharatiya society really made the youth of Bharata conscious of who they are, what they are, etc. Then it was Sri Aurobindo. People have only heard of him, but I don't think many people have read him, Sri Aurobindo. Not many people have read him. Vivekananda Swami, many people have read. But Sri Aurobindo, not so many people have read. Primarily because of his language. Very, very tough kind of English he uses to write. His language is tough. His language is very metaphysical, very philosophical, and things that he says is sometimes and oftentimes not easy to understand. I fell into Sri Aurobindo's magic net unconsciously and unknowingly. Of course, when I joined this university as a professor, because the room the professor was using originally belonged to Sri Aurobindo. Maharishi Aurobindo was teaching here for 15 years. And that's the room given to the professor. Of course, I felt guilty sitting there. I did not sit there beyond maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I must have said. Then I shifted. But before itself, I've already graded a PhD thesis on integral yoga of Sri Aurobindo. So Aurobindo was not unfamiliar, but seeing him, looking at the place where he used to be, sitting, and the room, and the house which he used to stay in Dandi Bazaar, and the hook where the horse cart used to be hooked. These were experiences, and Aurobindo has destroyed the Aryan theory. Swami Vivekananda also objected to it, and later, of course, we knew. It did not affect us. That's why there was no much of work on it against the Aryan invasion theory from Bharat, because it made no sense to us, because we already knew who Aryan means, what Aryan means. We already knew. The Europeans treated the concept of Aryan as a race concept. We knew it was. We already knew that Aryan concept is not a racial concept. It's a connotative concept. It's a quality concept. Given these qualities, one is Arya, and if you don't have such qualities, you are an non-Arya. Simple. We were familiar, so it did not affect us. But these two stalwarts, they were instrumental in bringing up the Bharatiya pride in the youth of people. I'm talking about modern times. Then, of course, Sri Aurobindo was teaching for 15 years here until he left. And he was becoming a Maharshi, not really consciously. That's what I was feeling. Not really consciously. That the kind of evolution that was happening within him. He was spontaneously turning himself into a Maharshi, of course, the youngest Maharshi of the nation Bharat, in that list. Youngest Maharshi. Maharshi Ramana was also almost contemporary, but technically, Sri Aurobindo is the youngest Maharshi in that fold. There are so many. If you happen to read Sri Aurobindo, you better read. It's better to read by yourselves. I would conclude saying just one anecdote. There's a place called as Chanaud. It's about 45 kilometers from the university where we normally stay. Sri Aurobindo is gone there, and he comes across Mother Goddess there. It's a temple, of course. The temple he's talking about. Then he spent three days, nights there at that place, conversing with her, and she comes back and writes about his conversation with her. All of us used to go there. I also went there. We are unable to find anything special which he finds. That's my drawback, or our drawback. We are not up to his level. He could do that. So many stories of Sri Aurobindo runs here. But he gave a nation soul. He really made Bharat more, made the people of Bharat conscious about what Bharat is, what nation is. And he had really replied the ununderstanding of European scholars about the Vedas and Upanishads. It's because you don't understand, you call them as unintelligible. Yes, it is unintelligible to you because you don't have that context. You go to a teacher, then Guru. You learn from a Guru. He says that in his book, The Secret of the Vedas. Recently, one of my students has got a PhD on this textual study on Secret of the Vedas. Recently, 3 or 4 months before, I suppose. So, that is how this nation is alive. This nation had ever been dynamic. This nation is thriving with life. However you look at it, because it's ever dynamic. There is no end point in the onward movement. There is no final point. Nobody says this is the ultimate point or this is the ultimate truth. You can always look for something new. You can always search for something new. You can always create something new. So, unlike, say, Pakistan, for them everything is set because they go by religion. We are Islam, that's it. That's the end of it. Unlike that I just bring them as an example. This nation is never static. That is how, come whatever may be, with all kinds of adversaries and difficulties, under the kind of circumstances which Bharat had gone through, if 10% of such circumstances, when happened with other nations, they all became something else. They all lost their originality, including the Greeks. They are not the Greeks whom we know through books. Even the Romans, they are not the Romans today whom we know through the books. Look at anyone in the entire world, any society in the entire world, they have undergone paradigm shifts. Paradigm shifts. Not a spontaneous shift out of dynamism, but a forced shift out of unwanted, unwarranted, unexpected compulsions of all kinds of things. This had not happened to Bharat. It won't also happen. So the dynamism of Bharatiya Sanskriti, Bharat's nation, actually is facilitated by the great minds that keep coming up from time to time at any point in this geographical context of the nation. It can happen from anywhere. It can come in any form, and it manifests in one direction. All these manifest only in one direction, in multiple ways, manifold ways. That is the multiplicity and plurality which the Vedas are recognizing as variations of one ultimate reality. That's what keeps us alive. After all these years of coercions and compulsions, look at the kind of rule what this nation has today. Can't you just see dynamism in the last 10 years? Look at the leaders what we have. Why should I name one? Look at anyone. Each one is unique in his own manner, in his own ways, which gives life to this nation, in turn gives life to you. Right, this will go on. This will go on. That's because the nation is alive, thriving, never dead. Till we meet next time, let me conclude. Namaste, Jai Bharat, Jai Shri Ram.